This nectar of instruction is actually given by Srila Rupa Goswami. So actually Bhaktivinoda Thakur has, today is his disappearance day, Tirobhav. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually has given the division about this 11 verses. So total 11 verses are there in Updeshamrita, nectar of instruction. So actually he says that the first verse is about Atma Sayami Madhyam Adhikari, the self-controlled Madhyam Adhikari. Actually, this will come Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyam Adhikari, Uttam Adhikari, like that, different categories of devotees. We will also have a discussion in one of the verses. So it talks about the one who can conquer all our senses, and he can be a spiritual master of the whole world. So Atma Sayami Madhyam Adhikari, like that. Then second, third, and fourth verse is actually talking about how such a devotee, such a steady devotee, Madhyam Adhikari, how he actually has dealings in this world, how he deals in this world, and how he performs his bhakti. That is told. So I also request you all can make notes, so it helps you, eventually later whenever you are studying the book, then you can have much more deeper understanding and you can assimilate more. So maybe if you can take some notes also, it will be helpful for you, like that. Something. Yes. So second, third, and fourth verse, it talks about. So second verse talk about what are favorable, what about unfavorable things are there. So 6 items which are unfavorable for our devotional service. That is the second verse. The third verse talk about 6 items which are favorable for our devotional progress. And the fourth verse is how different devotees should relate with each other, how they can have loving relationship, how they reciprocate, how they deal. So this is in fourth verse. And then 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, it talks about the vision of that such kind of steady devotee and also his internal progress. So 5th verse is about Vaishnav Seva. So the 3 ways one can have Vaishnava Seva. So Vaishnava Seva, 3 types. Then the 6th verse is talking about how Vaishnava does not see any kind of external attributes of other Vaishnavas. So one should not see Vaishnava material vision. 6th verse. Then 7th verse, it talks about how one can actually get rid of the ignorance and how one can develop taste for holy name of the Lord. So this is in 7th verse. And then 8th verse talks about how one can worship the Lord in the mood of Vraja, which is quite high topic. So of course, we shouldn't artificially try to make our own concoction and try to get rid of our current services and go to some kind of Babaji in Vrindavan and do some kind of bhajan. That's not recommended. But the point is, one can stay, like Prabhupada taught, one can stay in America, one can stay in Juhu, one can stay in whichever place the Guru wants him to do service and can have that mood. It's about mood of how, so Vishri Vraja Bhajan Pranali, how one can have worship of the Lord in the mood of Vraja, like that. And then 9th verse talks about what is the different holy places and bhajani sthal and what is the hierarchy of them. So it is talking about 9th verse. And 10th verse talks about the worshippers, the devotees, those who are worshipping the Lord, among them who is the highest, like that. The 10th verse. And the 11th verse actually talks about the glory of Raghava. So that is 11th verse. This is how this entire nectar of instruction is divided like that. And also in nectar of devotion, there are mention of sadhana bhakti, then Raganuga bhakti. Actually, sadhana bhakti has Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, then Raganuga sadhana bhakti, and then comes Bhav bhakti, and then Prema bhakti. So there are 3 stages like this. Okay. So what is sadhana bhakti? Sadhana bhakti in essence, when somebody has not started for the Lord, but he follow the rules and regulations under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. When he does that kind of bhakti, steadily he tries to follow the rules and regulations and the orders of the spiritual master he follows sincerely with the intention to develop love for Krishna. So that is Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. And in sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti is the first, and then Raganuga sadhana bhakti. Raganuga sadhana bhakti also person follows rules and regulations, but his attachment. Srila Prabhupada gives example like, for him to come to Mangalarti, to sing the kirtan for the Lord, to have different variety of services, he has developed spontaneous attachment to the Lord. So that's how he is on Raganuga platform like that. And then as he develops more, then he comes to Bhava Bhakti. Bhava Bhakti means he has static emotions for the Lord. He's on the Bhava platform. And then he does not need any rules and regulations, though still he may follow them for the sake of setting the right example. We do that, but he's a Bhava Bhakta. And then when Bhav stage further progresses, when becomes very intense in his love, and ecstatic emotions to the Lord, that's a Prema stage, Prema Bhakti. So this also is divided, nectar of instruction also is divided into different verses in different stages in terms of Bhakti, Sadhana Bhakti, Raganuga, and Bhav Bhakti. So I will just show you one slide which will help you to understand this. I'll just share the screen so you'll get the idea. This one, sorry. So it says first to 7 is Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. And then verse 8 is Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. 9 to 11 is Bhav Bhakti or Prema Bhakti. So this is how different verses are divided. And there is also mentioned in nectar of devotion about Shraddha to Prema, different stages. So Shraddha is the beginning. So we will discuss more in nectar of devotion in detail. But how this entire progress in Bhakti is, it is 9 stages are there, right? From Shraddha to Prema. So Shraddha means initial faith. It's called Ado Shraddha. We have to say is that before that also there is called Satam Kripa. That is some Sangha of devotees, some association of devotees by which he also develops some Shraddha. So cause of Shraddha also is Sadhu Sangha. But once you have Shraddha, then you do Sadhu Sangha also. Right? If you have that Shraddha, then you have some Sadhu Sangha. And so after Shraddha and Sadhu Sangha, then when you have good Sadhu Sangha, then Bhajan Kriya. Bhajan Kriya means then you start practicing devotional service. You start chanting, you start doing devotional service. So that is Bhajan Kriya. And as you do Bhajan Kriya nicely, then what happens? Anartha Nivritti. Then all the misgivings from the heart slowly goes away. Then Anartha Nivritti happens, then eventually you develop steadiness. That's called Nishtha. So that means your bhakti becomes very steady, Nishtha. And every stage that a lot of characters is described, that is the subject matter of nectar of devotion. And after steadiness, Nishtha, then there is Ruchi, then Asakti, then Bhava, then Prem. Like that, different 9 stages are there. So this nectar of devotion also is, in that 9 stages also, it is categorized like this by Acharyas, you can see here. So 1 to 3 Shraddha stage, 4 to 6 Sadhu Sangha, then 7th Bhajan Kriya Anartha Nivritti and Nishtha, 8th is Asakti, and then Bhava and Prem. Nishtha and Ruchi, and then 8th is Asakti, and then 9th, 11th is Bhava and Prem. Like that also it is divided. Okay, so this is how it is described also. So I'm just giving you some kind of introduction to NOI book. So I have you some understanding about it. So I'll show you one more verse. So, one more slide. Anyway, this is just talking about different stages. What does it mean? Shraddha, little faith, assuming purity, that already I told. Okay. So, yeah. And you see the 4 books, basically, the entire process of bhakti is all about sadhya and sadhana. So what is sadhya? Sadhya means goal, what you want to achieve. And sadhana means the process, right? So this is what, the way we attain anything in this. We have to have a goal, and then, we want to know the method of sadhana. So what is the highest sadhya? What is the highest sadhya? And what is the highest sadhana? So this becomes very clear in these books. So what is the sadhya? Somebody would like to tell? What is the sadhya? As devotees, what is the sadhya? Or not as a devotee, what is the ultimate sadhya anyway? Goal, ultimate goal. Yes. We have some in-person also devotees, so that's why I'm asking them also. What is the ultimate sadhya, ultimate goal? Anyone?
Krishna consciousness.
Yes. So Krishna Prem, right? That is ultimate sadhya. And what is the ultimate sadhana? What do you understand? What is the ultimate sadhana? What is the ultimate sadhana? How we can achieve Krishna Prema? What we do for that?
Service.
Chanting.
Yeah. So basically devotional service, bhakti. So there are many paths. There can be different paths by which one can progress in his spiritual journey. So you see, Bhagavad Gita establishes how bhakti yoga, the bhakti path, is the highest among all the paths, correct? To attain the goal of life. So the goal of life, ultimately one has to come to the platform of bhakti, and then bhakti only gives you Krishna Prema. And it analyzes the path of bhakti with other kinds of path, the karma, jnana, yoga. It analyzes and establishes how bhakti is the highest path to attain the goal of life. And the highest sadhya, that is Krishna Prema. So even that also, that how ultimate object of our life is Krishna, that's also established. That Krishna is the end goal of everyone. Vedesha sarver ahameva vedya. Krishna says, Vedanta Kripa aham. So that is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. But if you see, so Ishopnisha also, first it talks about how in terms of like universal controller, but it finally comes to how Krishna, the God is the supreme person. It establishes that. Ishopnisha. And Nectar of Devotion also in the beginning, it little bit analyzes about how bhakti is superior to other paths, karma, jnana, is even higher than liberation, all that establishes. And then it gets into detail of sadhana, how bhakti can be very nicely, performed. So lot of details are there. And then sadhya also, it talks about 64 qualities of Krishna and static emotions and all that. It talks about that. So it goes into detail, much into detail like that. And Nectar of Instruction is not trying to establish bhakti as the highest path. It is already understood from previous discussion that how bhakti is the highest path. And now a person who is committed to the path of bhakti, how he should actually practice bhakti, by which he can very nicely attain his sadhya, that is Krishna Prema. So everything is there in Nectar of Instruction book. It's a very small book, 11 verses, but it gives the full description of everything required to attain the goal of life and the sadhana also, how the sadhana should be. That's why we said, from Shraddha to Prema, everything is there in Nectar of Instruction book. So it is not just meant for very advanced devotee or very new devotee. Is meant for everyone. Because anybody who is bhakti can get benefited by this Upadeshamrita. So we'll come to the preface of this Nectar of Instruction, and then we'll begin. So let us hear from devotees. What did you get till now, and any reflection till I open this preface? Yes. Any reflection? Because I want to make sure that you're getting things. Yes. Please
So
feel free.
from the
Reflect.
network,
Till now, whatever you understood. Yeah.
from the nectar of instructions, there are 11 verses which will make us understand of how the steps of going from the path of Shraddha till the path of Prema Bhakti, that we will be learning. That is pretty much which I understood like till now, like summarizing it if we can.
Yes.
That's what I understood. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Avyut?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Same as Prabhuji, the 11 verses and what they talk about, but also that how we should do our sadhana properly to achieve the Lord.
Sadhya.
Sadhya.
The goal. Yeah. Yes. So yeah, it gives us so much clues that how we can practice devotion service so that we can attain our Sadhya Krishna Prema. Very nice. Yes. Yeah. Anybody else would like to share anything? You want to say? Okay. Anybody else? Sumit Prabhu, Ajit Govind Prabhu, and Anjum Mataji. Anybody like to share anything? Okay. Fine. So we'll go to preface now. Okay. Go to preface. So it's very powerful preface. So it says, so I have put in yellow certain things, which I like the most important lines, which I thought I can highlight. So you can read the yellow part. You can read one of you. Okay, you want to read?
The Krishna consciousness movement.
Okay, he's reading. But somebody offline. Yeah.
The Krishna consciousness movement is conducted under the supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami.
Yes. So we are called Rupanugas. Huh? We are called Rupanugas. Rupa Anuga, the one who follows Srila Rupa Goswami, or the path given by Rupa Goswami, the teachings given by Srila Rupa Goswami. So this is a very interesting thing that, of course, we have Prabhupada Nuga, and we are Srila Rupa Goswami followers also. Specifically, we are called Rupanugas also. So now, who is Rupa Goswami? Because maybe Avikta and for Gopal and others also. So there are 6 Goswamis, which are the direct followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So these 6 Goswamis, they are very important for all of us, because they are directly received the teachings from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they have done the great work of giving us so many literatures, and they have given us the process of devotion service. Elaborately, they explained it. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that he has invested so much of time, even with Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, he has given so many instructions, and they have given so many books to us. So I have a question. Among Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, okay, among all the 6 Goswami, who is the eldest? Anybody knows? Who are the 6 Goswamis first? Anybody knows all the 6 Goswamis' name? Somebody can all the 6 Goswamis' name?
Rup Sanatan, Bhatta Raghunath, Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta, Das Raghunath.
Correct. So who is the eldest? Ajit Govind Prabhu, who is the eldest among them?
Youngest was Gopal Bhatta Goswami, if I'm not wrong. Eldest, I'm having confused.
Youngest is Jiva Goswami, but who is the eldest? Yeah, who is the eldest?
I'm not having, I'm having doubts in my mind between, I don't know, I'm not sure.
Okay, no problem. Anybody else knows? Sumit Prabhu, you know?
No, bro.
Okay, so Sanatana Goswami is the eldest. Sanatana Goswami, you know that? Okay. Sanatana Goswami, then Rupa Goswami. So Sanatana Goswami, they both were actually brothers. Yeah. So Sanatana Goswami is the eldest, and Rupa Goswami is younger. But still, we are called Rupanugas. So there's a reason for it. Why we are called Rupanugas. So you see, so Krishna is the highest object of our service and love. And the highest devotee, who is the highest devotee? Anybody knows? Who's the topmost devotee? Yes. Who's the topmost devotee?
In terms of the Goswamis?
In terms of everyone, who's that highest devotee?
Gopi. Gopi.
And gopis also, who's the highest gopi?
Hare Krishna, Radharani.
Rukmini.
Radharani, correct.
Oh.
Radharani. So Radharani is the highest, right? And then Radharani has very intimate sakhis, Lalita, Vishakha, and there are others. So there are total 8 sakhis are there, right? And then they are assisted by manjaris. Manjaris are like small girls. This is a spiritual world, no? The spiritual world. So Radharani and many gopis are there. So 8 are the primary gopis, and there are many other gopis also, and they're assisted by manjaris. So manjaris are like small girls, and so they also assist in the Ras Leela. They may not be directly in the Ras Leela, but they're assisting, the other gopis like that, and Krishna, Radha Krishna, they assist. So among the manjaris, the chief manjari, the one who's the leader of all the manjaris, is actually Rupa Manjari. And this Rupa Manjari is who? He is Srila Rupa Goswami. So Srila Rupa Goswami is none other than Srila Rupa Manjari, who is the leader of all the manjaris in the spiritual world. So that way, Srila Rupa Goswami actually is, we are all Rupanugas that way. So that way his position is there. And the way we understand Krishna Bhakti is through Goswami, through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given this teaching to all the 6 Goswamis. So we take shelter of these Goswamis to understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that's how we can understand Radha Krishna. How we understand this is Goswamis? We understand this is Goswamis by taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada. So when we understand Srila Prabhupada's teachings, then we are actually getting the essence of the teachings of all the 6 Goswamis. And that's how we getting the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then only we can understand Radha Krishna nicely. This is how it is. So what Srila Gautam Thakur has told that when I am going to understand the literature by the Goswamis, then I shall be able to understand the transcendental loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. So somebody can read the yellow.
May I?
Yeah.
Okay. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in order to bestow upon human society the benediction of the science of Krishna. The most exalted of all the activities of Lord Krishna are his pastimes of conjugal love with the gopis. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the mood of Srimati Radharani, the best of the gopis. Therefore, to understand the mission of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and follow in his footsteps, one must very seriously follow in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis, Sri Rupa, Sanatan, Bhatta, Raghunath, Shri Jiva, Gopala Bhatt, and Das Raghunath. Sri Rupa Goswami was the leader of all the Goswamis, and to guide our activities, he gave us the Upadeshamrita, the nectar of instructions to follow.
It's the same book. Yeah, correct.
Yeah. As Sri
So
Chaitanya
Chaitanya was given only 8 verses, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has expanded so many books. I mean, he has given so many teachings in the form of the literatures given by all these Goswamis. And so we have so many books given by these Goswamis. So, so Rupa Goswami Path has given many books, Lalit Madhav, Vidyat Madhav, Ujjwal Leelmani, like many books. But the Upadeshamrita is one of the very important books for all the Vaishnavas. So let's read somebody else can read. Sumit, Malbhai would like to read in all spiritual affairs.
In all spiritual affairs, one's first duty is to control his mind and senses. Unless one controls his mind and senses, one cannot make any advancement in spiritual life. One must promote
So the
himself.
So the first verse actually it talks about how one should conquer over the urges. 6 urges it talks about. So there's a first instruction given in Nectar of Instruction book. So I think this spiritual affair, the first duty is to control our mind and senses. Why do you think it is important to control mind and senses? What is the first duty? We say no bhakti, just do bhakti. It will just fine. Why is mentioned that first duty is to control his mind and senses? How do you understand this in the context of a devotee? Anyone?
So that Maya doesn't affect while doing worship.
Yes, correct.
So that it's like pure,
Yes.
not perverted in any way.
Yes. Any other point? No, good point. Any other point anybody would like to share? Sumit, you want to say?
Like it will help us in our spiritual journey if we control our urges.
Yeah. Prabhupada made a statement. He said Krishna consciousness and sun gratification go ill together. Prabhupada said this. So what happens when you control your mind and senses, then you're actually able to practice bhakti nicely. But if you're not careful and cautious in controlling your mind and senses in a way it is favorable for bhakti, then what happens? It's like you are putting water in the fire. So we are practicing devotional service. It's like we are, igniting the fire and then gradually making it ablaze. But if you're pouring water in between, then it becomes problematic, right? So yes, we are in the path of devotional service, and bhakti itself gives us that platform where we are able to control our mind and senses. But one has to also be cautious, and consciously one should endeavor as well, to control his mind and senses. So that verse is there. Ragadvesha vimuktastu vishyan indrasyan atmavashya vidheyatma prasadam adhigachati. So there is mentioned that raga dvesha vimuktastu, attachment and aversion, giving up that vishyan indrasyan atmavashya. One should control his mind and senses. Atmavashya vidheyatma, as per vidhi. Vidhi means the vidhi vidhan of the scriptures, as per the direction of the scriptures. One should control his senses. Atmavashya vidheyatma prasadam adhigachati. Then one gets purity. Prasad, mercy of the Lord. That mercy of the Lord is nothing but purity, actually. Because then you can, then you can focus on devotion service very nicely, like that. And these rules and regulations are not some kind of dry rules and regulation. It's all rules and regulation which is favorable to bhakti. So that's why Srila Prabhupada also told, this 4 regulative principle is important. No meditating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. And there are many more instructions that are going to come, which is very, very vital. So one should not think, oh, I'm just doing bhakti, I don't have to worry about these rules and regulations. No. There are many verses which talks about how one should perform these rules and regulations with the spirit of pleasing Krishna, and the spirit of making his bhakti blossom more and more, like that. With that motive we do it. Not like jnanis, of course, but our motive is to be able to focus on Krishna more and more. There is another verse also. It says, Tayam sarvabhuteshu santushtayena kenava sarvendriyopashantacha tushyanti ashu janardana. Sarvendriyopashantacha, it says. So they are sarvabhuteshu, being compassionate to all divinities, santushtyanika, being satisfied in all situations of life, and sarvendriyopashantacha, controlling all the senses, withdrawing all the senses from any kind of unfavorable engagement which may not be favorable for bhakti. Tushyanti ashu janardana. You can very easily please the Supreme Lord. So we do try to control mind and senses. It's our duty for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. So we should be very enthusiastic to follow all these rules and regulations which are given by acharyas, which are given by our teachers. Those are teaching us bhakti. We should be very, very enthusiastic to follow them. Because that will help us to progress in our devotional service, to protect our devotional service, to make our devotional service very smooth and wonderful. Yes. So somebody else can read from here. One must promote.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. One must promote
I
himself.
request others also to read. I don't know, it's easier for them. Okay, so Anjum Vishwas, and also who else is there? Ajit Govind Prabhu.
Sorry, Prabhu, I'm driving. I'm just.
Okay, no problem. So who else is there? Ajit Govind Prabhu, you want to read?
Yes, Prabhu. From where should I start, Prabhu?
We can read from here. One must promote himself.
One must promote himself to the platform of goodness, Sattvaguna, by following the instructions of Rupa Goswami, and then everything concerning how to make further progress will be revealed. Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. A follower of the Krishna consciousness movement should become a perfect Goswami.
Yes.
Vaishnavas.
So when you follow the rules and regulations, then one thing happens is you gradually come to the platform of goodness. Actually, this platform of goodness can be attained by even jnanis also, yogis also. So that's why we are not merely just following rules and regulations, but we are following rules and regulations which are favorable for bhakti, and it helps us to keep dry, so that the bhakti the fire of bhakti can keep, getting more and more that way. So we have the spirit of, pleasing Krishna. That's for sure. And second thing, he very amazingly he says that when you actually practice this devotional service, then you come to more platform mode of goodness, and by following these instructions, you come to mode of goodness, and then everything else is revealed after that. Says that everything concerning how to make further progress will be revealed that way. So that means, as sadhaka, when we situate ourselves more and more in mode of goodness, and then because of the lower modes, the base modes of ignorance and passion, as we are covered, then we are having a lot of clutter. But when we come to mode of goodness, then it becomes easy to able to understand the spiritual subject matter, like that. Mode of goodness is not sufficient, but it is a platform. It's like a springboard where you can actually come to the platform of pure bhakti, like that. So that's why it is also emphasized that as devotees, we try to promote ourselves platform of goodness, but we don't have to do something extra. We just follow the rules and regulations given by our acharyas. We follow those bhakti principles only. We rise early in the morning. We take water bath. We take bath in the morning, and then we go for Mangalarti. We take sattvic prasadam. I mean, it's a Shuddha sattvic prasadam, but I mean the sattvic food which is offered to Lord and becomes Shuddha sattva prasadam. And we have regulated lifestyle. We keep clean. So all these things we follow. So that way we automatically come to platform of goodness. So more we keep ourselves on the platform of goodness, then it becomes more easy for us to practice spiritual life and to grasp spiritual subject matter. So one can be more and more easily when we are able to ascertain the bhakti truths more easily. And this is the most powerful point. Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. It's a very, very important point. So I want all of you to repeat at least once this point. Just read this one by one.
Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower.
Yes. Others also can say one by one.
Advancement.
Yeah. Avikta.
Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower.
Yes. Ajit Prabhu. Samit Prabhu.
A follower of the Krishna consciousness movement
No,
should.
advancement Krishna consciousness. Just this
Advancement
line.
in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower.
Yeah. And Ajit Prabhu, you want to say? Okay. So advancement Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. So what do you mean by this? What do you understand? What attitudes are favorable for bhakti? What attitudes are not favorable for our bhakti? It's very important for us to know. And these things are given so much, in all these books. What should be our attitude? And it's given in all these Prabhupada teachings, Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master. So this is one very important point. If we keep favorable attitude, which is going to, make us more and more advanced in devotional service, so our progress is very swift. But if we carry wrong attitude, even though we will be practicing a lot of things, then we will not able to progress properly. So in Hindi, it is called manovritti, or attitude. What is your attitude? What do you think? What do you think about yourselves? What do you think about other Vaishnavas? What do you think about acharyas? What is your attitude towards deities, attitude towards devotees, attitude towards prasadam? So what is your attitude? So that's very, very vital. So can you tell some of the favorable attitudes and some of the unfavorable? So let us talk first some of the favorable attitudes. Can you tell what are the favorable attitudes which is going to help us in make progress in devotional service? Quickly.
Discipline?
No, so discipline is a practice, Prabhu. Attitude is deeper. We are talking about attitude. Attitude means what do you think about yourself? What do you think about other devotees? How do you, relate to somebody who is say low-born and he has become a devotee now? How do you see him? How do you see the deities? What do you think about them? What do you think about prasadam? Attitude is not discipline. Discipline is a practice. I'm talking about attitude. Attitude is deeper. Manovritti. How you think? What is your attitude?
Open-minded, never judging any devotee by their
You have to be
path.
more specific. You have to be more specific. I'm talking about attitude. Okay, non-judgmental. Okay, that is one
Yeah,
thing.
not judgmental. Yeah.
But can you discuss? Can you little more, be more precise to it? Not judging on what basis?
Past.
Yes. Okay. So some devotee, maybe having some past bad habits, some sinful activities, but now he has become a devotee. So one should not judge him and condemn him. Or somebody
Yes.
who's come from say he may be born socially some family which is considered to be low family. So one should not see that background. Correct? No?
Right.
So one of the verse will tell that how Vaishnavas should not be seen with that vision. That's not the right attitude. So right attitude is the Vaishnavas are actually transcendental because they're engaged in devotional service. So they are spiritual. We should not see them with this kind of material vision. That's good. That is the right attitude. And like this, others can also share. What are the right attitudes?
Like, maybe we shouldn't view them, we shouldn't view anything they do as wrong. We might be confused, what are they doing? What is this? But there's actually something to service.
Yeah, that's not the thing. But I'm saying some more attitudes. Like I'll tell, one of the attitude is that which is being taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Gopi Pada Kamalayor, Dasa Dasan Dasa Dasan Dasa. We are servant of devotees. This is the right attitude. So when you see any devotee, I am servant of the devotee. In the outside world, people want to become Vasanupa. That is the attitude. But in devotional circle, our attitude is that I am trying to be servant of devotees. This is the right attitude. Correct, no? How you relate to devotees, how you see them. So like that. So there, I'm just servant. Like Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur would say, Dasosmi. Anybody would come to meet him, say, Dasosmi. I'm your servant. Like that. So somebody would ask, who has come? He says, I'm devotee of Krishna. He says, sorry, I'm busy. Okay. Another person comes, who has come? He says, I'm a servant of devotees. Servant of devotees. That's okay, I have all time for him. Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur would say like that. So like that, some more attitudes. Some more good attitudes, what we can have.
Being humble.
Yeah, humble. Yeah, correct. So when you understand I'm servant, and being humble, not getting unnecessarily puffed up.
Yeah.
Understanding that how it's Krishna who is making everything happen. I'm simply instrument. Not taking foolishly that false credit for what we have done. A devotee's attitude is that, oh, it is actually the mercy of Guru, Krishna, who is making me do something in their service. That is their greatness. I'm not so qualified. I don't have much qualification. What is my qualification? We have been just struggling in this the world of illusion, so many lives. So because of the mercy of devotees and Krishna, we're engaged in their devotional service like that. That is their mercy. So by their mercy, I'm able to serve. Like in deity worship also, they say that right attitude is not, no, I'm not worshipping. I'm simply assisting my spiritual master. Who am I? To worship the Lord directly. So I'm simply assisting my spiritual master. I'm simply assisting the acharyas and especially my spiritual master I'm assisting. So there's a mood, right? So the mood of assistant, Not that I'm the servant of the Lord, I'm the great devotee. So that mood is not right? Humble attitude, correct. So like that, there are many favorable attitudes. And like that, there's an unfavorable attitude, which should be given up this way. So attitude of the practitioner is very, very important. What is my attitude like that? So this always, one should check, being non-envious, being humble, and being satisfied in all situations of life. So this attitude, okay, Lord, suppose, we have not much as per, generally what people may think that, oh, I need this, I need that. So devotee understands whatever way the Lord has kept me, it is best for my devotional practice. This attitude. If suffering comes in my life, that is a verse, devotee sees that, oh, it's not because of my own past karma, I have done so many misdeeds. So Krishna is reducing them and just giving me token punishment. And actually what he's giving me also is for my purification. This is mercy. He's actually helping me to get closer and closer to him. So let me offer my obeisances to Krishna. Let me offer my gratitude to Krishna for giving me his mercy through this purification, through this kind of token punishment. So devotee's attitude towards suffering is completely different. Outside world, when suffering comes, they start blaming. Correct? That way. So this is how we should have the right attitude. So we have to know this kind of attitude from this wonderful literatures, and also from the devotees who are practicing devotional service, those who have made so much of advancement. So we should also hear from our spiritual master and read about books and associate with devotees to catch the right attitude. There's one thing you can always catch from great souls: their attitude is high class. So we have so much of troubles in our devotional service because of our wrong attitudes. So if we can just make our attitudes correct, we can see Bhakti can become very, very wonderful for us, like that. So we carry a lot of wrong attitudes, like that. So we have to work on that. So we should always try to catch the attitude part in our life. It's important. Okay, so let's go further. So we have to become perfect Goswami. Says Go means senses and Swami means the master, right? So Updeshamrita is actually meant to make us Goswami, to achieve the highest success of life in life, highest success in life by becoming Goswami. Then a pure devotee to the Lord, one must follow the instructions known as Updeshamrita, which has been given by Srila Rupa Goswami, and he has given many other books. Updeshamrita considered the first instruction for neophyte devotees. So it is for not just very great devotees, for neophyte also, for new people also, for new devotees. So just taken to Bhakti path. And as I mentioned, that Updeshamrita is not trying to analyze different processes and establishing Bhakti as highest. It is already established in Nectar of Devotion book, though we have not done it. We are going to do it. Like Bhakti Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Devotion, Ishopnishad. We have seen that Ishopnishad talks about the universal control, and then coming to the personal form of the Lord, how it is the highest. But especially Bhagavad Gita and Nectar of Devotion, Bhagavad Gita does more, and Nectar of Devotion does little bit. Comparison about other path of other sadhana paths, and that how Bhakti is the highest. And also it talks about the sadhya, Krishna, qualities of Krishna. Nectar of Devotion describes so much, and even in Bhagavad Gita also we find some lot of discussion about Krishna. So that will be there. But Nectar of Instruction, this book, it's already directly for those who have taken to the path of Bhakti Yoga, and the very powerful instructions for even the beginner devotees. It's very, very vital for especially the beginner devotees, and even for advanced devotees, how to make nice, wonderful spiritual advancement. So this is a preface. Okay? So we'll come to the first verse. So you can repeat after me. Vacho vegam manasa krodha vegam.
Vacho vegam manasa krodha vegam.
Jivva vegam udarupastha vegam.
Jiva
Udarapashta Vegam.
vegam.
Etan vegan yo vishaheta dhiraha.
Etan
Tan
vegan.
Vegan Yogishta Dhira.
Sarvamapi mam prithvim sasishyat.
Sarvamapinam
Sarvamapinam
pratyayam.
Prithvim Shashisha.
Yeah, somebody can read the translation.
Sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger and the urges of the tongue, belly and genitals is qualified to make disciples all over the world.
Yeah. So he's talking about who is like in terms of, if you see what Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about, Tridandi Swami, how he is self-controlled. Tridandi Swami, how he is able to control all his senses, all his urges. And then when he's fit to make disciples all over the world, he's saying. So these urges. So it's very beautiful because it gives us a very practical action points on how we can actually control these urges, how we can tolerate and control these urges. Very nicely explained. So there are many Vegas in the body. Certain Vegas should be controlled, and certain Vegas, like there is a call of nature, that Vega, there is hunger. We can take, we can address it, but I mean, belly is there, but it should be addressed, but it should not be in a way that we hurt ourselves also. So the point is that these 6 urges, it makes us diverted, distracted from the path of Bhakti Yoga. That's the point. So we don't want to be distracted, and we want to be focused in our path of devotion. So that's why it is very important to take the instructions to our heart. And Srila Rupa Goswami Pad is very nicely describing all these obstacles in devotion service. So further obstacles will come in NOI verse 2. And here is talking about the urges, like that. So, so now the first paragraph, I'm just summarizing it. You may not read it. The first paragraph, Prabhupada talks about how in the sixth canto, Parikshit Maharaj asked Srila Sukadeva Goswami that those people who are not able to control their mind and senses, so what is the benefit of their doing atonement, prayashchitta? Because he heard so much of description about sufferings in the hellish planets, what people get because of committing so much of sinful activities. So Parikshit Maharaj was very aggrieved, very, very aggrieved. And he was really feeling for the sufferings of those people who are going to suffer, those who are suffering in the hellish conditions of life. So for their benefit, Parikshit Maharaj became very inquisitive, and he was asking intelligent questions to Sukadeva Goswami. That okay, there is a process of atonement, which is there in the Vedas, which helps people to get rid of the sinful reaction. But even after doing certain atonement, people again commit sinful activity. So what is the use of that? So Prabhupada explains in the purport, he gives the example of a thief. So he says there are four classes of people. So the first class of person is one who hears and understands. Like a thief may hear that stealing is bad and he understands. I mean, not thief. Some person may hear that stealing is bad and he gives up. He doesn't steal at all in his life. Okay. So that is first class person. The second class person is he hears that stealing is bad or anything for that matter. But here example of this is given, stealing is given. So he understands stealing is bad. But he may not just understand by that. So he sometimes may also need to see others suffering. When they stole, they got caught and they are suffering. And then by seeing that, oh, people are suffering by doing this act, then they may give up. That is second class of person. The third class of person is he hears, sees others, but he has to personally experience. He will himself do that sinful activity and he will experience it and then he may give up. The third class. And the fourth class person is he hears, he sees others also. With others' experience, he doesn't learn. He personally also experiences the suffering, he still doesn't learn, and he continues again. This is the fourth class. Prabhupada is a rascal class. They don't learn anyways, in any means like that. So this he says the example of thief, he says like that. So basically then Prabhupada brings up the point that ultimately this atonement is not helping, because Parikshit Maharaj asked about the use of the atonement, and Parikshit Maharaj, Sukadeva Goswami also agreed with that point. Yes, just by doing atonement, just by doing prayashchitta, one is not able to control his mind and senses. Again, he gets into sinful activities. So that is not the real solution, for one's getting free from these distractions, these urges. So then further, he says, so he compares this to elephant bathing. Like elephant takes bath, and then what happens? Again, he puts dirt on him. Correct, no? So then what is the use of that, taking bath? It's like you go commit sinful activities and you atone, get rid of sinful reaction, again commit sinful activities. So he gives the example of in Christianity, sometimes they will commit sinful activities, then they will go to the father and say, Father, we have done this sin, and they will give some kind of money as an atonement. And the father says, okay, now you're forgiven for the previous sins. And then they again go back on Saturday, they continue their sinful activities. So Prabhupada says this is no good, because sin no more. So, but they cannot stop sinning because they have uncontrolled mind and senses like that. So in Nectar of Devotion also, this thing is this, I mean, of course, Nectar of Devotion, and also sixth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, very systematically then he further talks about the path of jnana. After atonement, the path of jnana. Parikshit Maharaj asks, Sukadeva Goswami gives that, by path of jnana, by having a brahmacharya, following or doing austerity, penances, meditation, one can actually get rid of the sinful activities, the reaction of sinful activities. So even that may be a little more relieving one from the reaction, and as well as he may get a little more purified. But it is still, the tendency to commit sin is still not gone. So it's like sometimes when in the forest there may be so many living entities and all that, but sometimes even after the trees are uprooted from that forest, everything is destroyed, but still the roots are there. Roots are still not gone. So then Sukadeva Goswami comes to the platform of Bhakti. He says that by only Bhakti, from the root, that sinful tendency goes away. From the root, it destroys. It uproots the sinful. It destroys the ignorance and uproots the sinful proclivities completely. Like that. So Kichit Kevalya Bhakti, that verse, in 6th canto, there he clarifies this thing. And he says just like the rising of the sun. So then the entire darkness goes away. Not even when the sun is fully, in the sky, but even when there is a glimpse of sun, like when it's Abhas itself, the Bhakti Abhas, there also one is relieved from that darkness to great extent. So the Bhakti Abhas itself can give you the benefit which karma and jnana cannot give. And what to speak of when Bhakti is full blown, just like a sun is fully in the sky like that. So Bhakti is the real solution actually for one to get rid of the sinful tendencies, sinful proclivities completely like that. So you understand this point. So here basically is talking about, can read this. Similarly, many spiritual practice chant Hare Krishna mantra, similarly commit forbidden acts. So he's saying that 7th offense, so that one should not do. And here he says, sinful activity cannot be contributed by pious activity. The real practical atonement is the awakening of our dormant Krishna consciousness, which is Bhakti does. By Bhakti only you can awaken dormant Krishna consciousness. So that's why it's a real atonement involves coming to real knowledge. And for this, there is a standard process. So when he says when one follows the regulated hygienic process, it does not fall sick. So human being is meant to be trained according to certain principles to revive his original knowledge. Such a methodical life is called tapasya. And then one can gradually come to the platform of Krishna consciousness, real knowledge, like that. So we say, Brahmana Brahmita Kono Bhagavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Pasade Pai, Bhakti Lata Beej, we say that, correct? So that bija, what is that bija there? The beej is actually the rules, method, rules, and regulation that is described there. Method, rules, and regulation, that is bija. So the spiritual master gives certain rules, regulations, and methods for performing our devotional service. So we are following that as bhakti principles. So when you do that, then we get purified from the core, the core ignorance itself. So the ignorance only is gone, and when it comes to the platform of real knowledge, then that's the real atonement actually. Then one will not commit sinful activities, correct? And he says that gradually one can get that by practicing austerity, celibacy, which is the path of jnana, which Sukadeva Goswami describes. But he says that, but if one is fortunate enough to get the association of a pure devotee, he can easily surpass all the practices for controlling the mind and mystic yoga process simply by following the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness. So we don't have to follow any other extraneous process of doing tapasya and doing some kind of extra austerity and controlling the mind and senses, devoid of any devotional program. We don't have to do that. We are following path of bhakti itself, and the path of bhakti only we have certain methods and rules and regulations. We follow them diligently, and by the process of devotional service itself, we get rid of the ignorance and sinful tendencies and proclivities, and that's how we are automatically able to control our mind and senses. You getting this point? This is the easy process. So it says that it's an easy process is recommended by Srila Rupa Goswami. So that's why we are able to follow these 4 principles: no illicit sex, no meditating, no intoxication, no gambling, and engaging in service of the Supreme Lord under the direction of one of our spiritual master. Like that it says. And of course, one more thing Prabhupada here talks about, we have to be careful that we don't indulge in sinful activities on the strength of the holy name. That is very bad. So this is called abusing the holy name. So actually, holy name will help you. It will help us to purify all our whatever the ignorance is there and sinful activity, sinful tendencies are there. All that contamination will purify us. But if a person takes advantage, I can now have a license, I can now commit sinful activities because I want to just go on that way, and I will just chant Hare Krishna, and that way I'll be eradicated from the sinful reactions. So if somebody takes that kind of thing, so this is called very grave offense. It's called 7th offense. Namno Biladyasi Papa Buddhi. It is very, very bad. So there has to be a serious intention of giving up one's sinful habits. That is very, very important in the path of bhakti. One should not be having this attitude we were talking about it before. That attitude that I can just go on with my sinful activities. So the person is that makes him hypocritical actually, because he has no motive to purify his heart and is not doing actions. He's not taking that action points by which he can rectify himself. So there is a difference between a struggling devotee and hypocritical devotee. A struggling devotee may be sometimes having some setbacks, some slips, maybe there, here and there. But he sincerely laments, he takes shelter of the Lord, and he takes some action items, how am I going to purify my heart? How am I going to, not fall to any of these, sinful habits? So he has a humble attitude, he has a repentant attitude, and he is actually trying to take shelter of the Lord, and he's putting very sincere efforts to overcome them. You're getting this point? It's very much visible in his intention and his action also, right? And he's not justifying. So, but if somebody says, okay, chalta hai, that is fine. Everybody has to. Kalyuga hai bhai, Kalyuga ka zamana hai. No problem, everything is all right. If that kind of attitude is there, which is very bad, because that will not please Krishna. So we have to always know that the whole devotional program is actually very much based on pleasing the Supreme Lord, and we cannot be dishonest with Krishna. We have to be very honest with Krishna that, oh Krishna, I want to purify my heart. So we cannot have double life. Okay, I show myself as a great devotee, I have Kantimala, I have Dhuti Kurta, I'm chanting, but then privately I do some sinful activities, and I have no program, I have no intentions. Sometimes there will be some kind of weak intention, but one is very, grossly, going on in that direction and not, doing anything to come out of it. You're getting this point, no? So there's a difference between struggling devotee and the devotee is head on into sinful life. He is simply cheating, he's cheating. He is making no plans for rectifying. Rather, he's justifying. I'm okay. Arey, pata nahi kya? From so many years I'm a devotee, and he may want to hide his private life. So this is very, very bad. So Krishna won't be pleased, right? So yeah, we may have certain sometimes some difficulties, some struggles, but we should be honest to it. We should sincerely take shelter of Hari Guru Vaishnavas, and we can have a humble attitude, repentant heart, and we should have some kind of action programs for rectifying our mistakes or for overcoming those sinful tendencies. So we don't become hopeless. We should be sincere and having confidence in the path of devotion, faith in devotional service. And also one should not become impatient also. One should have patience also, because not immediately all our anarthas may be gone. So maybe still struggling. But we are not just like casual about it. We are sincerely trying to work on it also. So that's why sincerity is the key word. One should be very sincere and genuine in devotional service, to make progress. One should very sincerely and honestly. So that pure motive should be there. The pure motive to purify my heart and attain pure devotional service. So I want to have pure devotional service. So we are trying to move in that direction, not like we have some ulterior motive. What can be ulterior motive? Like I just want a respect of a devotee, or I want to have a business in ISKCON, because I have some good connection, social connection. I can have nice business here, right? Or I can have nice acquaintances by which if I have some in need, then these people can fulfill my needs or something like that. So there can be different ulterior motives people may have. So hypocrisy means what? Having some ulterior motive when you're performing devotional service. And then we want to have certain life where we're not changing that. We are having devotional, we are showing devotional part somewhere, and the personal life we are not changing. We are not trying to reform ourselves. So a struggling devotee, he may be having difficulties, but he is trying to reform. He's trying to take help. He's sincere. He's trying to take actions. How can he rectify himself? So this is a sincere devotee. So then he says, okay, this we have discussed. Then he says, the first is Vachovegam. So one must control his speaking power. So His Holiness Bhakti Rasayan Maharaj was saying that how, if somebody is told, you fast today till midnight, like Janmashtami you do. So many people may do that fasting. But he was saying it is very difficult to keep silence. Not to have control over urge to speak will be very, very challenging. So it's very, very difficult. So people so much keep talking. The whole ether is filled with so much of gossip. People just keep talking. So much of talk going on. Talk going on WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram. It's all talk. Even though people may not be speaking, but they're chatting. They're also writing. It's also talk only. So they're speaking a lot. It's going on. So Prabhupada compares this kind of materialistic talks, which has nothing to do with Krishna consciousness, is comparing it to be croaking of a toad. So we have a tongue, we want to speak, then it's like a toe. We just keep speaking some mundane things like that. So Prabhupada says that this kind of talk will only attract the death. We are only, just like when the frog is just tan just keep croaking, the toad is croaking. Then what comes is a snake, and the snake will simply eat up like that. Please come here and eat me. That's what he's inviting. So he's saying, he's comparing the talk of a materialistic person or impersonalist Mayavadi philosophers. Is compared to the croaking of the frogs. So they're speaking nonsense, inviting death to catch them. So controlling his speech, however, done now that doesn't. So instead of talking nonsense, one can be silent. But that's not the solution. To just not speak, because we cannot remain inactive. As soul, we are active. So our mind, our speech, we have to have some engagement for that. So Prabhupada says the solution is not to remain silent, having self-imposed silence, mauna, which many people sometimes think as the means of conquering over this Vega. The many people who are like Mani Babas, and they want to just not speak. But then Prabhupada says they don't speak, but then they write so many literatures. And that's why the Vachavegam they're not able to control even then, like he says. So they're saying, if you are keeping Maun, then why you're writing then? But at least actually you're speaking, even if you're keeping Maun also. So the real solution is the silence, the real silence, the real solution is that we actually engage this faculty of speech in Krishna Katha. So this is what the solution is. Silence may appear helpful first time, but ultimately it proves a failure. By contrast, the control speech advocated by Srila Goswami is a positive process of Krishna Katha, engaging the speaking person, glorifying the Supreme Lord Krishna. The tongue can just glorify the name, form, qualities, and past tense of the Lord. The preacher of Krishna Katha is always beyond the clutches of death. So this is the significance of controlling the urge to speak. So we have to engage ourselves in talking about Krishna. So one devotee was sharing that how, if you generally ask devotees, Prabhu, can you tell something? Sometimes they may say, they may fumble, they may not be able to speak. Sometimes. And but if it is asked, some other topic, so many things are there to speak like that. So actually, the more we are able to speak about Krishna, the more we are able to discuss among devotees, subject matter related to Krishna, the more actually we are having this control over Vachuvegam. So Vachuvegam essentially means having Krishna conscious talks. So we have to be very careful that we are engaging our faculty of speech in talking something relevant to Krishna or in our growth of Krishna consciousness. So our individual and collective growth of Krishna consciousness, our tongue should be engaged as a faculty of speech. So that we can control the urge to speak that way. And then Prabhupada says restlessness or fickleness of the mind, manovega, is controlled when one can fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. So Prabhupada explains in the purport in Bhagavad Gita in 18th chapter, he says how the sense gratification actually leads to so much of disturbance. I can show you that verse. Prabhupada talks almost 6-7 times how sense gratification leads to the disturbance of the mind. So I'll just show you that verse. Very beautiful that is. I think 17. Yeah, see this one. Can you read this? One of you? Sumit Gopal.
To make the mind austere is to detach it from sense gratification. It should be so trained that it can be always thinking of doing good for others. The best training for the mind is gravity in thought. One should not deviate from Krishna consciousness and must always avoid sense gratification. To purify one's nature is to become Krishna conscious. Satisfaction of the mind can be obtained only by taking the mind.
So this is the nature of sense gratification. The more you employ the mind for sense gratification, trying to enjoy the senses, that kind of thoughts, then mind becomes disturbed. So we don't understand, we don't realize, but actually our mind becomes more disturbed by indulging some gratification. Go ahead.
In the present age, we unnecessarily engage in the mind in so many different ways for sense gratification. And so there is no possibility of the mind's becoming satisfied.
You're able to see it? Oh, you're not able to see it.
Prabhu, you have
Should have told me.
shared the
You
application,
should have
not
told me. Anyway, you should have told me.
I was
Go
going to,
ahead.
but then like Gopal Prabhu started reading, so I didn't want
Anyways.
to.
That's fine.
Yeah.
In the present age, we unnecessarily engage the mind in so many different ways for sense gratification. And so there's no possibility of the mind becoming satisfied. The best course is to divert the mind to the Vedic literature, which is full of satisfying stories. So, as in the Puranas and the Mahabharata, one can take advantage of this knowledge and thus become purified. The mind should be devoid of duplicity, and one should think of the welfare of all. Silence means that one is always thinking of self-realization.
Yeah, this silence. Silence means you always thinking of self-realization, about Krishna consciousness, about Krishna consciousness growth of Krishna consciousness movement, the growth of Krishna consciousness as an individual, the growth of Krishna consciousness of the devotees. So this is how the mind should be employed. So the person Krishna consciousness always observes silence in this sense. Control the mind means detaching the mind from sense enjoyment. So it's straightforward dealings and therefore purify existence. All this qualities considered austerity in the matter. Okay. So it's very important. But the more we think of sense enjoyment, the more mind becomes dissatisfied. You see, you find that. And in modern age, unnecessarily engage the mind in so many different ways of sense gratification. You can see that. So there is no possibility of minds becoming satisfied. And the whole advertisement industry is actually what it's trying to do, induce us for varieties of sense gratification. Even though you don't want, there's so many, bombardment. Gratify your senses this way, gratify your senses that way, gratify your senses this. If you don't want, like even in, if you take a mobile, so many things will come. So that's why one should be careful. All these modern day distractions are not only in billboards. It has come to your screen only, your mobile, laptop, internet, social media. So practically one is so much bombarded with some gratificatory options. And one's mind can just get completely, crazy for many ideas of some gratification. And that's how one is so pursued, so much of some gratificatory thoughts, so much of and that is because of so much of some gratificatory, bombardment, it's happening. It's such a mass scale like that. So that's why we have to be very careful. That's why we should stay with devotee association, and we should keep ourselves as much as possible away from this kind of, sense gratificatory exposures, where people are gratifying senses, running after sense gratification. Live with devotees, where devotees are running towards Krishna, where some discussion of Krishna is going on. That's why, Tandera Charana say Bhakta Saneva. So staying with devotees, then naturally our mind will go towards Krishna. Goes for service to Krishna. That is very nice. So, yes, so I will just share the screen again back to that. So he says that to try to create vacuum will not work, right? So Krishna is like a sun, Maya like darkness. So when there is sun, then there is no question of darkness. Then there will not be any mind agitation. So we cannot create vacuum in the mind. So we have to think of Krishna and serve Krishna best. Well, then one's mind will be controlled like that. And then it says anger. Anger also cannot be stopped altogether. But we have to simply become angry with those who blaspheme the Lord or devotees of the Lord. So there are different examples given. Like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became angry on Jagai Madhai. Hanumanji became angry on Ravana, right? So Prabhupada here writes, one should be following this principle of Trinadapi Sunichena, blade of grass, thorn in the tree and all that. That is the mood of a devotee. But when the Lord and devotees are blasphemed, then devotee has the right to, anger for in the service of the Lord, basically. So anger can be used. Like Arjuna also became angry on Parvati. Okay, so anger can be used. Anger can be used even by like teachers, parents, for rectifying the child, for rectifying the disciple. So so one should not become controlled by the anger, but rather one can utilize that anger for the service of the Lord. So in the service of others, in overall helping them in Krishna consciousness. So that is fine, but one should not become controlled by the anger. That's what is said. And how the anger comes, that is given in second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Thayato Vishan Pumsa Sangasya Shupacham Sangha Sanjate Kam. Vega. So that's why one should give up, this pursuit of some gratification, and that will help one to also, conquer over the anger as well. And as I said, actually, all these emotions it's a pure, counterpart, or rather you can say the bad counterpart of the original emotions in the spiritual world, like lust. What is the original emotion of lust? Anybody? What is the original emotion of lust?
Urge.
What is the original emotion? What is the urge? I'm saying, what is the original emotion of the lust? Lust is urge anyway. What is the original pure emotion in the spiritual world? Lust is in this world. What is the original emotion there in the
Love.
spiritual world? So Prabhupada says, no, there is nothing, there is no possibility of all this, anything here in this material until there is not in the spiritual world, because it's a perfect reflection. So what is the original version of lust? Original pure emotion?
Love.
Love of Krishna, right? But when
Yeah.
you forget love of Krishna, then it becomes lust, towards all varieties of gratificatory objects, like that. Same way, what is the pure version of selfishness? Like here, we become very selfish, greedy, become greedy. So what is the pure version there? Become greedy for Krishna. So you have there also greed. There is an emotion of greed there. Having greediness for the service of Krishna, like that. So all emotions have its pure nature also. Like there is anger in the spiritual world. There is also fear in the spiritual world, but that is, not in a way comes out of ignorance. Like Shamaya may also fear, hey, my Krishna should be protected. Nothing should harm. Sort of love. There is no inebriety. But here in this world, it's inebriety. So there are the original emotions. And Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu even describes different kinds of emotions are there. So there is a man, man lila. Radharani may become angry on Krishna. But these are all pure emotions. Understand? And here perverted reflection is there here. Here also sometimes you find them, the so-called lust. It's not love, lust, and then they become angry, they fight. But that is okay. So generally we should not allow. Okay, the next comes is the tongue, or the tongue. So Prabhupada writes that generally we should not allow the tongue to eat according to its choice, but control the tongue by supplying prasadam. So devotee's attitude is that he will eat only when Krishna gives him prasadam. So we should always be sticking to this point of taking only prasadam. Then only our urge of tongue can be stopped, like that. So one should not be very much attracted to sweet meats and all that. And Prabhupada even says that later it will come, that even for prasadam also, one should not be too much getting greedy for tasting palatable food stuff. Even in prasadam also, one should be careful, or one should not accept the invitation of some devotees. That's why it is not so advisable to purchase some kind of food stuff from outside, restaurant here and there, because then you are giving options to yourself, and then you'll not be able to control your tongue. But if you stick to prasadam, then automatically you are controlling, you see, because if not prasadam, you're not going to eat. I know some devotees, they went for some work, they couldn't get, then they only survived on fruits for 1-2 days, because there were no prasadam. So devotees become sometimes so chaste to Krishna. They don't want to eat anything which is not offered to Krishna. So, and then we will, so sometimes devotees say, but how can we survive? No, Krishna will make a, Krishna will help us. And that way our mind also, our brain will tax, how we can get prasadam only. We will always only used for begetting children, not otherwise. So that's why no illicit sex. So it's so the grahasthas, they may follow the Garbhadhan Sanskar process, and only for having Krishna conscious progeny, they may use this faculty. Otherwise, one should not engage one's genitals like that. So that's only the proper use of this thing, genitals like that. So, and that kind of Krishna conscious marriage and Krishna conscious procreation is dharmic and is glorified. It is not at all condemned. it is good. But otherwise, it is not proper. That is when the one falls victim of then it is like that. Then he says, Bhakti Thakur, he talks about three kinds of this: speak and urge to speak, urge of the mind, and the demands of the body. So he divides in like that. So here, urge to speak is Bacho Begam, and in that, so he says here, you see, one who practices resisting these demands of the urge is called a tapasvi, who practices austerities. And by such tapasya, one can overcome determination by material energy, the external potential of Supreme Son Godhead. So this is when if we refer to us to speak, we refer to useless talking, such as that of impersonal. I already explained a little bit of this. So you can just read more here. So basically, my philosophy people, and these people, let's keep talking and having so many literatures. So all volumes of books have come up. It's all basically us to speak. And then he talks about this famous verse 1.5.10, that how those words are glorifying the Supreme Lord. There are those words are not glorifying the Supreme Lord. There are the places of pilgrimage for the crows. So there's so many literatures, in the market, but none of them, many times, most of them will not have any sense of devotion to the Lord. So it's all pilgrimage of crows only, like that. So I should not be so much attracted to read this kind of magazines, fictions, so many varieties of literatures, novels, because it's not going to help us at all. So it is pilgrimage for crows. It only will just unnecessarily, contaminate the mind with so many varieties of ideas, which has nothing to do with devotion. That's why one should avoid them. Rather, on the other hand, even if the literatures may not be very properly composed in terms of they may have some grammatical errors sometimes, may not be very properly composed for the poetic, rules and all that, poetic rules and all that. But if it is meant for glorification of the Lord, that is actually very, very auspicious. It will create revolution, in the life of the suffering souls of this world, like that. So one should be very, very eager to read such kind of literature, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, all these literatures we have. Sometimes there may be some proper said, by efforts I am trying to write all this literature. There's some kind of mistakes here and there, but those who are saragrahi, those who are essence seeker, will actually accept them and will benefit from them and perfect their life. So conclusion is that only when we talk about devotion service to Supreme Godhead can we refrain from useless nonsensical talks. We should always endeavor to use our speaking power solely for the purpose of realizing Krishna consciousness, like that. Then it's talk about flickering mind. They're divided into two categories: Vacho Vegam, just mind, and Vacho Vegam and mind, and then this one, yeah. So we speak urges of mind and then demands of the body. And demands of the body, will say three things, the tongue, belly, and genitals. So all things will come. And so anyway, so he's going to speak here about so he says the agitation of the mind, avirodha priti, unrestricted attachment, and virodha yukta krodha, arising from frustration. So you can read that. So frustration of material desires, it produces anger. As I said, when you attach to some gratification, then when there's some obstacle, then one becomes angry. So this virodha yukta krodha. And avirodha priti, unrestricted attachment, some gratificatory things, being very fruitive, having fruitive is like karmavadi is talking about, like that. And so that's how one will be not having a stable mind. Mind will be flickering always. So there are two ways: avirodha priti, unrestricted attachment for materialistic things in terms of sense gratification, or impersonal understanding. Both kind of things are mentioned here. So karmi and jnani, both. Even impersonal attachment of the mind also will lead to frustration. And then virodha yukta anger. And then out of the frustration, anger comes. And then he says demands of the body can be divided into three categories. So tongue, belly, and genitals. And say this in a straight line. See, tongue, belly, and genitals, a straight line. So if you work on controlling the tongue, then belly and genitals also will be controlled. That's what he says. So if we can restrain the demand of the tongue by limiting its activities by eating prasadam, the urge of the belly and the genitals can automatically be controlled. It's in a straight line. Tongue, belly, genitals. Okay. Use of extra quantity of spices like chili and tamarind should be given up by Krishna conscious persons. So even in prasadam also, one should not too much get into all this trying to taste the palatable food. So one can accept it as a mercy of the Lord, but not try to gratify his senses too much. That is not good. So one should have some kind of control, even while prasadam. So first is to take only prasadam, and then within prasadam also one can gradually also refrain from falling prey to satisfying one's tongue. So there is a verse called Jivirala hoy iti utidhai Shishnudhara parayana Krishna hi pai. The person who runs here and there seeking to gratify his palate and who is always attached to the desires of his stomach and then is unable to contain Krishna. Krishna, no, we will not get Krishna if you are only running after tongue and genitals like that. Shishnodhara parayana. Shishnodhara. Jivirala. So if you are only running after the tongue, satisfying the tongue, and ityutidhai, it's running here and there. Shishnodhar means the belly and genitals. When we become servant of that, then we will not get Krishna. So, and Prabhupada says those suffer from disease of stomach also may have, maybe because of they are falling prey to satisfying their tongue. Like that. So that's why he says fasting or Ekadashi Janmashtami is very good. That can help one. And genitals can be used only for procreating nice children. That way one can overcome that also. And then, yeah, and when somebody is indulging in illicit sex life, by thinking, planning, talking about, or actually having all these things are, or and satisfying the genitals by artificial means, that is touches of Maya when he's getting caught in that. So nowadays modern youth, they suffer from so many problems. No, they get into all this masturbation and this kind of habits. So these things are actually artificially they're trying to do all that thing. That's very, very deadly. So they sometimes they get into all this pornography and getting into masturbation habits and all. So these things can actually it's again he's falling in that kind of category. So that's why one should live a life of regulation, following the principles of Krishna consciousness, and controlling the tongue, the belly, and then that way one can have also control over genitals like that. So that way one can remain safe. And it's not only for householders, for tyagis, for everybody it is there. This kind of section is there. So if I saying, thinking, planning, talking about, or actually having sexual intercourse by satisfying genitals by my dear brother, you're in the renouncement of life. You should not listen to talk about or worldly only thing. Not to talk about worldly things when you meet others. Do not think of women in public, except the renouncement of life. The vow that forbids to associate with women. If you wish to associate with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you must always remember the incident of Shataridas. Shataridas was rejected by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for some slight mistake, but just to teach others, because that is not appropriate in dealing with women. How you direct the Lord, do not eat luxuriously and justifying garments like. So conclusion is that one can control the 6 items: speech, mind, anger, tongue, belly, and genitals. It's called Swami and Goswami, and then that's how you can become properly Swami. Goswami is not a title. Go means senses, and Swami means master. So one can control your mind and senses, then only you can become Goswami. So read the last verse. Somebody can read the last verse.
For those who have dedicated to continue
Decided.
For those who have decided to continue their existence in the material world for the gratification of their senses, no chance of coming nor by personal input, by instruction from others, or by joint conferences. They're dragged by the unbridled sense of darkest region of ignorance, and thus may engage in what is called
the saying that not becoming some because nothing in the sense the material world, then there's such kind of person into darkness of ignorance. That's why one should also one should know both the things. So when you have when you have good medicine, then the potential of the medicine one should know and how it can cure our disease. And if you don't take that medicine, and if you remain diseased, remains a servant of the senses, we don't follow this instructions of Srila Goswami, the kind of wrong decisions when we lead. So they also mentioned, right? So where do we both the things? The consequence you don't take it, right? Please take it to attend and be saved from this kind of wrong destinations. So I'll pause here. It's only 9:30. So if there any one point anybody would like to share, otherwise we can take reflection later also. I don't want to go over it.
we should do. Yeah.
Just one reflection quickly. One line you can just tell in the next 2 minutes, and then we'll pause. And don't take much time. Just one line, but was punching point for you.
Prabhuji, the one line of stuck was advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on our attitude.
Attitude of the practitioner, right? Krishna consciousness depends upon the progress, and Krishna consciousness depends upon the attitude of the practitioner. Very good point. Avikta, you told, right? This point. Good. Yes. Somit, 1 point.
Controlling our urges of mind and senses, we should do that. Yeah.
Yeah, something that is mind and senses. Correct. Prabhupada says, nobody can become successful in the path of spiritual progress without controlling one's mind and senses. The first principle is to control one's mind and senses. And we discuss the reasons why we should do that. Why we just can't say, anyway, I'm doing bhakti, why do you need of rules and regulations and controlling mind and senses? We discuss that part. Yes, any other point? Somit Prabhu, Ajit Govind Prabhu.
Understanding about the difference between the perverted reflection of the things which are in material world, like what you said about lust. So, but in the spiritual world, it's love. So everything which is like perverted over here is actually so much pure in spiritual world. That was like one of the main points of it.
Okay, good. Ajit Govind Prabhu, any one point? Ajit Govind, you're there?
Yeah, I'm there. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Yes,
So the
Prabhu.
point wherein, in the beginning where you mentioned about the classes of Uttamadhikari, Kanishthadhikari, and how Uttamadhikaris are in the process of being the sannyasis and the gurus. That point.
Yeah. Okay. Sumit Man, well done. Okay, everybody spoken. Your father is also participating? Okay, we'll pause here. So we will meet tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Huh? So we are running short of one verse, but we will cover up in between. Don't worry. Somewhere we'll go a little more, somewhere we'll little shorten it. Because it was a beginning, so I took some time for introduction. So that's why we are running short. But don't worry, we will cover it up. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. God bless you.
Thank you.
His pace is good. It's fine with the way we are going.
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Avyakta? Okay. And Avyakta, you're able to understand?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.